What's going on, people? We are Tottenham TV, back here for another episode of Player Ratings as we drew 1-1 against West Ham at the London Stadium yesterday. And let's get straight into it, I guess, and start off with Hugo Lloris. Sim gives him a 6. I gave him a 5. And look, to be fair to him, I actually thought he had a strong performance in that first half. He was really commanding from crosses, punching and catching a few. But it was the second half where he let us down, and it was his constant playing out the back and bad distribution that ultimately led to their goal as well. That let us down yesterday.
Yeah, that's obviously the big disappointment. I think he made some good saves as well, especially in the first half from Benrahma, one from Rice as well. So he had to make some important interventions in front of goal, but the passing from the back definitely let us down, and that's what ultimately cost us the goal, which is so frustrating because it doesn't need to do it. Sometimes you can just go long and you know, play it safe, but it must be under instruction, but unfortunately it cost us.
All right, let's move on. Next up, we're going to talk about Davinson Sanchez. Sim gives him a 4. I gave him a 5. Davinson. I thought in the first half he defended well for the most part. Second half is where the problems really started to come as we kept persisting to play out the back. It seemed like a clear plan from West Ham to keep pressuring Sanchez and leave him free, then keep pressuring him, and it worked a charm for them because every time he got pressured, he pretty much shut the bed, and we lost the ball pretty much every time when Sanchez had it trying to play out the back, and it was just so frustrating to watch, just time and time again, trying to get Sanchez to play out the back. But I did feel like defensively, apart from that, he was okay.
Yeah, I thought he was all right defensively, but ultimately their whole game plan was based around allowing Sanchez to have the ball, and it worked a lot of the time when he was on it. His long passes as well, when he was forced into it, was not great, not very precise. I think only one of his 7 long passes were accurate. So he's going to have to work on, and we've been saying it for a long time now, that's an element to his game which needs big improvement. So hopefully it doesn't become a theme where a lot of teams start targeting him when he plays, but definitely happened yesterday.
Let's move on to one of his partners in Eric Dier. 6s all round from us, and I felt like he looked the most comfortable on the ball yesterday, Eric Dier, and when you're looking at Ben Davies and Davinson Sanchez, so I didn't have too much of a problem there. And defensively as well, I thought he stood up to the challenge of what most came his way, but still I expect him to be more stronger in defence. I think his aerial ability, it was okay a bit yesterday, but you're expecting a more commanding performance, in my opinion, from Eric Dier yesterday. Yeah,
there were a few occasions where Antonio got the better of him physically, but I think by and large he was all right. I think his passing was probably the best out of the back three as well when it came to that. But I just want him to see him stand up a bit more up against Antonio on the odd occasion he was getting the better of him, but it was a pretty average performance for Dier.
Let's move on to Ben Davies. 5s all round from us. Again, similar to Sanchez, but not as bad as Sanchez. I mean, he did lose the ball and was playing erratically out the back a few times, Ben Davies, which was kind of uncharacteristic from what we have seen since Conte has come in. He kept losing the ball, kept swiping at it, kept misplacing passes, especially in that second half, and it was really frustrating to see.
Yeah, for all the struggles Sanchez was having playing on the back, Davies was having very similar problems when being pressed, and that's something he's going to have to work on. When he went forward as well, he found himself many times in like a left back position without getting much joy, without being able to beat man or anything like that. And I think he was quite wasteful on the ball yesterday a lot of the time, and it put us in a bit of trouble. Bowen nearly scored from one of those moments, so big things to work on for Ben Davies, because that's 2 fairly disappointing performances in a row, isn't it?
All right, let's move on to Emerson Royal. Sim gives him a 6. I gave him a 5. Defensively, I think he did well, Emerson, and I think the stats back that up as well in terms of how many duels he was winning and how many tackles he made and that kind of stuff. But it's the same old story with Emerson. He didn't get forward enough at all, and when he did get forward, he didn't do much with it. So he needs to be doing much better going forward. And you're looking at, on the other side, when you're looking at Ivan Perisic, I mean, it's worlds apart from what we're seeing from Emerson.
Yeah, he just doesn't have the flair that Perisic has. That's the reality. They're all the quality, really. He did end up having one shot right at the beginning of the game, which forced a save out of the keeper, which was decent effort. But that pretty much was the extent to his attacking contributions, and then it pretty much ended from there. He was. I thought he kept Phil Fornals in check pretty well, but I just didn't see enough of him when we were in forward positions to threaten the opposition. He feels like he's too easy to deal with at this point in time when going forward, and that is becoming a problem.
And I felt like not only did he deal with Fornals well, I thought he dealt with Benrahma well when he came on as well. So defensively, I don't have any problems with Emerson. It's going forward where the problems lie. But let's move on to a debutant in Yves Basuma. 5s all round from us, and it was a bit of anti-climax with Basuma yesterday. Everyone was expecting a lot more, but I felt like he played within himself for most of the game, got stifled with that stupid early yellow card he got for smashing the ball down onto the floor. And he just didn't drive the team forward enough, in my opinion, and he was just playing it safe more often than not, to be honest.
Yeah, I think he was trying to be as combative as he can be, but there were moments where, because of the early yellow card, he had to disengage because he didn't want to risk getting sent off. I think on the ball, he had some nice touches, and there were a few nice passes in there, a few switches of play, but on that, not much to be much excited about, not much adventure in it. In terms of him driving with the ball, dribbling wise and using his power, didn't see too much of that, unfortunately. He would just like to give the ball quickly, pop off quickly to either Hojbjerg or more likely Sanchez, which was the case for a lot of it. So I want to see a bit more confidence in him. I'm sure that will come with time, but it wasn't the best debut from him, unfortunately.
I'd like to see the stat, if there is one, how many times he did pass to Sanchez within that game yesterday, because there was a lot of times. But let's move on to his partner, Emile Hojbjerg. 6s all round from us. I thought first half he was actually really good, marshalling us in the middle and trying to drive us forward as well. A few dinks over the top. Second half is where the problems came, where he was under a really heavy challenge from Declan Rice, and he didn't really seem to recover from that up until the last 5 minutes of the game or something like that. He went down about 3 or 4 times during that period, and at some point during that period, you got to say to the manager, "Look, I'm ready to come off now. I'm not fit enough to play this game," because it didn't look like he was, and it hampered us in the middle, and it especially hampered Basuma, in my opinion. And Conte's got to make that decision. And at the end of the day, he didn't have enough to trust Skip because he didn't think he was ready yet. So. I don't know what else he could have done, to be honest.
Well, Hojbjerg was struggling, man. He was struggling.
Massively.
So I would have risked it. I would have put Skip on if he's on the bench. He's been training this week. I would have put him on for at least like 20 minutes or so, because Hojbjerg didn't seem right. Since that injury, his passing was a bit off. He couldn't move as freely, so it wasn't fantastic. And then also for the goal, he was talking to the referee. We didn't even talk about Basuma for the goal, by the way. He completely switched off Basuma for that goal as well.
Yeah, he did.
Which was a big problem.
Just off the back of him, didn't he?
Yeah, exactly. He wasn't aware of where Souček was. But as well, Hojbjerg was talking to the ref just before that goal went in, and he ended up scrambling to try and stop Souček and couldn't get back in time. I think going forward, he was being a bit more adventurous than Basuma, trying to make something happen. Couldn't quite do it, but there were a few moments. Actually, the foul came from a really good attack, which he was breaking down the right side of the West Ham defence, and he just overran the ball in a really promising position, and he ended up getting injured from it, which he never really recovered from. So decent display in the circumstances, but he struggled quite a bit after the injury.
Let's move on to Ivan Perisic. 7s all round from us. In my opinion, Spurs' best player on the day yesterday. First half, he was giving Soufal no ends of problems, charging down that left-hand flank and trying to make something happen for Spurs. He was putting crosses in the box to a good level that ultimately never found anyone at the end of the day. But second half, I thought he kind of declined in influence a little bit. Ended up staying on the pitch 90 minutes, and I felt probably, as the game wore on, should have brought on Sessegnon.
Yeah, I thought he was our biggest threat. The penalty that never came from a Perisic situation when he was taking on Soufal, and Soufal really struggled to deal with him throughout a lot of the game. But yeah, second half, he definitely wasn't as involved, but he was still had his moments where he, there was one moment where he got to the byline, drove the cross right across the face of the goal, and just someone had to be there to tap it in, and no one was there, unfortunately. And I thought, again, it was another really positive display from Ivan Perisic, and he just goes to show what we're capable of if we have a player like that in the wing-back position, how much of a threat they can be, and it's just night and day between what we see on the other flank.
He's a proper player, Perisic. He really is. Lucky to have him. But let's move on to Dejan Kulusevski. 7s all round from us. Another good display from Kulu, which carries on his good form. I thought he was really good in the first half. Really tricky, hard to deal with. Trying to be creative, trying to make stuff happen. Some other players not really on his wavelength. But in our breaks away, he was central to everything good, really, Spurs were doing going forward. I think he did tire in that second half a little bit, and kind of they marshalled him out of the game pretty well in that second half. But all in all, it was a good display.
Yeah, I thought that he was brilliant for the goal as well on the breakaway. Did really well to the timing of the pass to Harry Kane to make sure he was onside. And obviously, we forced the own goal through that. A lot of good work was down to Kulusevski. I thought he was really causing their Cresswell a lot of trouble throughout the game, and whenever he got the ball, he seemed to make Cresswell think about where he's going to go, and he struggled to contain him. But that just the final pass, well, I wouldn't say it was wrong, but he just couldn't quite pull off clear-cut chances and things like that. There were a few moments where he was looking for Harry Kane. It was smart ideas, but just couldn't quite pull it off. And I was a bit surprised that he kept Son on and took Kulusevski off for Richarlison, because I did think Kulusevski was having a far better game. So one to think about. But it was a good display again, I thought, from Kulusevski in the end.
That pass for Harry Kane is very underrated. I thought it was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. But let's move on to HeungMin Son. Another lackluster display, to be honest. 5s all round from us. In the first half, the ball just kept bouncing off him, heavy touches, couldn't get it under really, and it was stifling us going forward. I thought actually in the second half he was growing a bit more into the game, as he has done in the past couple of games, but you can still see that he's missing that clinical edge. There was a couple of chances where an on-form and confident Sonny puts those in the back of the net, but unfortunately they just went wide or just went over or went down the keeper's throat. So Sonny's got to get that clinical edge back.
I think, he was playing a lot more centrally from the start, I felt, this time round than in previous games where he was starting out from a lot more on the wide position, but wasn't quite getting the runs in behind you would have liked. I don't remember too many times he was able to get shots off on Fabianski. There was one moment where he was literally through on goal. All he had to do was take a good touch with his head to put it in front of him, and he would have been one-on-one, but he just takes a heavy touch and ends up going back to Fabianski, and that's the story of Son right now. He's just not playing nowhere near his best, and he's just a bit off it. Having said that, he's always just his mere presence creates a bit of a threat against the back line, because his pace forces West Ham players to move and follow him and track him, because you can't leave him, otherwise he's so dangerous. So that did create a bit more space for Perisic, I felt, but we didn't make the most of it.
And last but not least, in the starting 11, Harry Kane, 6s all round from us, and I felt like he was trying really hard yesterday, Harry Kane, dropping deep, muscling in with his physicality, doing really well, winning the ball in the air at times as well, spreading the play, trying to create. But ultimately, I felt that West Ham dealt with him fairly well, to be honest. And I thought their centre-back, that new centre-back, Kehra, had a really strong game yesterday, apart from the own goal.
Yeah, he did play quite well. I think Kane actually was pretty decent. He was a bit of a handful for the West Ham back line a lot of the time. He was holding players off. He was bringing himself into play with good dribbling.
Didn't he?
Yeah. Unfortunately, there are a few moments in the second half which I'm downgrading him for, where he really could have got in the box and we really would have put West Ham under pressure. But for some reason, whenever we had the chance to cross the ball lately, he was hanging around the edge of the box. So we really need him in there in that 6-yard box to cause a bit of trouble. Having said that, there was one moment in the second half where he had a volley from just inside the box, which was a very presentable opportunity, which maybe that only comes when he's hanging around the edge of the area, when there's a bit more space. So maybe that's that's why that was the case. He did really well for the goal as well, to overlap on Kulusevski and put the ball on a plate for Son, which would have been a goal if it wasn't for Son goal, if it wasn't for Kehrer own goal. So I think he had a pretty good display again, but not enough of a goal threat, I would say, for the likes of Kane.
And the only substitute that we did make was Richarlison. 6s all round from us, and he came on for Kulusevski with around 20 minutes to go, something like that, and straight away he showed intent with that lovely little dummy hitting down the line. And you know, he brought some intent, he brought some energy, he brought some aggression to the team and getting in another fight, but ultimately it was just huffing and puffing without blowing their house down.
Yeah, he did that really good dummy that set the tone for his cameo, and he was trying to take on the right back, the West Ham left back. Sorry, got some joy, but didn't really cause too much danger to the West Ham goal. I think he's better off on that point being on the left hand side, so he can cut in and shoot occasionally. Didn't really get the opportunity to get any shots on goal, which is a bit of a shame. But it was another bright cameo from him, full of energy.
And last but not least, Antonio Conte, 5s all round from us. Not sure what was going on with Antonio yesterday, but he didn't. The game was crying out for changes early in that second half, in my opinion, and he didn't change it till really late. Only made one change in the game when I felt like he could have brought on wing backs to really push the issue. You know, Spence was on the bench, Sessegnon was on the bench. And especially with Emerson, you know, we really lack something going forward. And I thought if he brought on a Spence or even Sessegnon, moved Perisic over to the right-hand side, we could have taken the game to them. But he just didn't seem to change anything. And I don't know why he didn't take off Hojbjerg either when Hojbjerg seemed like he was struggling, and that stifled us massively in the middle of the game in the second half. So game management was a bit poor from Conte yesterday.
Yeah, I feel like we've managed games pretty well so far this season, but yesterday I felt like that was a down mark on Conte. I felt like he could have made the change on Hojbjerg early. I think he could have done that and given Skip a run out. I think Richarlison should have come on, or even started, but he should have come on a lot earlier, Richarlison, and he probably should have come on for Son as well. And maybe should have instructed the team to go a bit longer, a bit more often than always putting ourselves under pressure with this short passing from the back and giving it to Sanchez. So there's a few, or maybe you should have even taken Sanchez off and just change it up a bit, change up the dynamic. You know, put Longley on and maybe move Dier to the right, or put Emerson right centre back and put on a right wing back. Just do something to change it, because we kept putting ourselves in trouble. Yeah. And he has to take responsibility for the fact that we ended up dropping points in a match where we were in control at one point. So that's disappointing. But with new signings still to be acclimatised into the team and everything, and no need to panic, no need to be overly critical, but just stuff to work on.
All right, well, that is your player ratings for the 1-1 draw at West Ham yesterday. Let me know in the comment section below if you agree with our ratings. If not, put your ratings in the comment section below. Like, subscribe and comment, and as always,
come on you Spurs.